And then Matt holds a little panel for everyone else out there. Hallway panel.
Does look like that.
Now we start thinking to this acronym.
If you roll, it's funny you learn.
Blood to paint up.
That throwing that
He's fine. He knows about me enough. He lives with me. Anyway, hi everybody. How are you? Yeah, it's still morning for me, so I'm going to assume it's still morning for you. This is my panel, How to Kick Ass and Take Names, which is also known as the Marisha didn't know what to title the panel to talk about herself. So that seemed appropriate. I didn't know what else to call it. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of just a little kind of Q&A, kind of talk about some of the experiences that... Hi. You're a hero today.
Is he a booth fan for you?
Yeah. Anyway, basically this panel is just about I've lived a really weird life. I also have happened to have been a woman my whole life in the entertainment industry, so that comes with a lot. So yeah, I guess we'll start off a little bit about myself. I hate talking about myself. I always just try and get through this to get to the Q&A. Yeah, I was always a gamer and a nerd, and I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, in a little small town outside of Louisville called Mount Washington. Like 8,000 people were there. So yeah, we didn't have gaming stores, we didn't have comic shops, we didn't have anything like that. I kind of started getting into acting and theater and doing local theater productions and stuff like that. And then I remember there was one time where in middle school, I realized for the first time that not everyone was a gamer. I just thought that having like a PlayStation was kind of like having a VCR. Like I thought just everyone had one. And I remember trying to bond with a bunch of girls in like 7th grade and was trying to be like, all right, so have you been playing Tomb Raider? No? Okay. There's this part that I just can't get through. There's this bridge that collapsed and you fall in this pit, and I swear to God. And then there was the boys' table, because that was back when, like, there was always a boys' table and a girls' table in school. And they were like, hey, are you talking about that time where the bridge collapses and then it's like a bunch of dirt and then you have to pull the block? I was like, there's a pulley block? That's how you get out of there? He was like, yeah, you gotta. And then I moved and I switched to that table. And that was when the first time that I started being like, oh, I guess not everyone plays video games, and that's lame. More people should do that. So kind of always carried that nerddom throughout the rest of my life. Ended up going to Point Park University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for acting. In college, went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York for a little bit. From there, went to Los Angeles, and that was where I starved for several years and did a numerous amount of weird and odd jobs to survive. And through, I don't know, you never really know. One thing kind of leads to another, and it always turns into this weird domino effect. But I kind of just kept following my love for video games, my love for comics, my love for geekdom, and my love for theater and performing. And through that weird perseverance, somehow ended up here. So just most things in this industry kind of tend to be a fluke, and then you start tracing back all the things that led you there. And every little small, minute detail leads to something. Like almost everything is important in a weird way. Right? Dramatic sound effects for my panel. Yeah, so I've produced and written my own web series. I did a web series called Batgirl Spoiled several years ago that I co-created and co-produced and was Batgirl in with a massive team of like 50, 60 very talented people to pull that off for no money. That led to, I don't know, once again, so it's so weird the way it all kind of will always flesh out. Matt and I made a web series called School of Thrones. It was like a John Waters style high school parody of Game of Thrones, where all the houses were cliques. So we did that together. I've had a lot of weird little things. I've done like some bit parts and some like made-for-TV Hallmark movies. Was in a couple episodes of 1,000 Ways to Die on Spike TV. There's a lot of weird things. You just you get to LA and you just say yes to anything and whatever you can do because you need that $200 or else you won't make rent. So if someone asks, hey Marisha, can you come and hold a boom mic for this shoot this weekend? You go, yes. And then you research later what it entails holding a boom mic. That happens a lot. And just the more you make yourself available and out there and just say yes. I mean, not everything's great or a wonderful experience. A lot of them aren't, most of them aren't. But each one always builds on the last and always leads you to that. So I started hosting and doing press in video games around 2008, 2009. And let me just say the whole, like, the G word, the whole Gamergate thing that everyone, like, that has come around like 2 or 3 times. It just always has a different name. And when I first started hosting in video games, that was when the whole scandal, they were just calling it celebrities pandering to nerds, or women pandering to nerds, and it was pandering. Pandering was the bad word back then. So yeah, I've had a lot of angry people yell at me and say, my favorite is when I'm like, oh yeah, I love video games, I do this. No, you don't. Oh, okay. I don't know how you can prove that. 1. 2, why would anyone lie about that? That's always my argument. You have to bust your ass to get anywhere in any of these industries. Why would I want to focus so much time into something that I fucking hate? Like, it's like the same. I mean, the women in sports get the same thing. Like, a women in sports commentator, I bet they're full of shit. I bet they're faking it. They don't even like sport. They don't even like football. Why would they be standing there? Why? Why would anyone arguably go through that much to be there? So the whole notion of shooting down people and questioning, your fun is wrong. That whole notion has been prevalent for a long time, and I think we're honestly finally starting to come out on the other end of it, which is great. Yay us. Yay geekdom. And Matt and I kind of briefly touched on this yesterday. There's the whole notion of gatekeeping and being protective and well, this is what I bonded on and this is what people made fun of me for when I was in middle school and high school, so, my coffee! Yes! Sharon, you're the best! How dare you? How dare it spill due to gravitational forces? Matt's over here, that recorder.
He's not in 4th grade yet.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Alright, we're good. Anyway, I get wanting to be protective over something. Conversely, wouldn't you feel happier and better if there were more people who you could relate to and converse with on the things that you love? So if there's someone who might not know about D&D, but they want to get into it, or maybe, they're not into anime or Magic the Gathering, but they're into it, don't be shitty about that. Help them. But we all have a responsibility to help each other and be kind in those new explorations. And just because someone might be new to geekdom and they might refer to themselves as like a geek, and you're like, well, but I've been playing AT&T since before you ever thought of it. Don't do that. We all have to start somewhere. There was all somewhere where you decided, oh, this is what I'm into, this is what I'm passionate about. We were all there. So, yeah, because goddamn the amount of times that I've been told that I am not, fake nerd, fake geek girl. What does that even mean? Legit. It always blew my mind. Because I would imagine we're all geeky and nerdy about something. It just seems so weird to judge people based on their level of interest. That's kind of a weird introduction, I guess.
No, it isn't.
I don't know, it's segued a lot, guys. That was segued a lot. But it's hard to give an introduction on myself in like 5 minutes or less. I don't know, do we want to open up to questions? Let's open up to questions. Questions always lead to more fun stories. Yes.
So, you said you were in a couple of episodes of Thousand Ways to Die. What were some of the ways that you died?
I actually didn't die. I know. I was the cause of some of the deaths. Like, I was implicit in that. There's one, okay, by the way, this shit is bad. It's not good. And one episode was it was a gaming episode. It was about gamers, and in the episode, all these kids are taking part in like an online tournament, and this guy didn't want to leave, so he just played nonstop for 42 hours or something crazy. And then I beat him in the tournament. And when he lost, and this will happen, this is a true story, he stood up really fast, but from where he had sat for too long, blood had coagulated in places, and then basically he threw a blood clot and died of a heart attack almost instantly. So I rage quit him. Actually, I think the name of the episode is Rage Quit. Swear to God. Swear to God. And I remember the director, who was he was like a German guy, and he was trying to get me to sound. He wants me to sound like a gamer, and but he has no idea what gamers sound like. So he had been like, yeah, just say things that like gamers say. There wasn't really a script, so I was just like, okay, and all right, I'm gonna take the payload. All right, no, you do this, and he was like, no, I want like the gamer speak. You know the gamer speak? And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, no, people don't actually talk like that. And he's like, what's it? I was like, you want like lead speak stuff? And he was like, yeah, that's what it's called. So I think I say, and then I just started, because I'm mean, so I just started kind of like trolling the production back, and I was like, fine, you want me to say some dumbass shit, then I'll just say the worst dumbass shit. So, I think I say noobzors.
Noobzors.
Some weird shit. I was like, noobzors. And then everyone was like, oh shit, you just got pwned.
Suck it, you just got pwned.
So they wanted me to say that stuff. So you get to see me being an embarrassing representation of what none of us are. Yeah, that was fun. That was good times. But that was one of the bigger ones out there. Yeah, that's all like non-union. They shoot like 4 or 5, sometimes 6 of those little bits in a day, and I think they pay most of their actors like $100 day rate. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it gets dark. Like you guys.
So like as a female creator and like content creator, when you experience those really like kind of negative moments and negative days, how do you stay positive or kind of pull away from all of that?
That is an excellent question for those who did everyone heard her for the most part. For female creators, how do you stay positive when it gets dark? I've had some hard times it's definitely gotten dark because there's certain points too where you know what, you'll get baited into things, you agree to things and you shoot things, and then they're edited completely differently. That's a hard lesson, is once that footage leaves your hands and goes into that editing bay, you have no control anymore. So I started to get very more particular about the things that I was shooting. One of the main examples is the first episode of Superpower Beatdown. The end of that ends with a car wash. And I was like, this was one of my first jobs. I was like 21 when I did this. And I agreed to it. The director, hit me up and put it under the guise that it was going to be funny and like a parody of like a Carl's Jr. commercial-esque. And I was like, that's the only way I would do this kind of in a bikini, you know, kind of just hypersexualized thing. I was like, yeah, I can totally make it funny and ridiculous. So Matt was actually there for that shoot. We just started dating. I was doing things like, I had the sponge, like it was so like, you know, car wash, and I took it and I was like, and then they were shooting it in 60 frames per second, so I was like, and then there was one time where like I took and I flipped my hair back, and I was in heels, so I flipped my hair back and then like stumbled out of frame. So I was doing all these ridiculous things, but because they were shooting in 60 frames per second, all of it, that meant that they got that almost double the footage for whatever they shot. So, next thing I know, episode was releasing, they'd cut out all of the humor. All of it. And it was just basically a smutty Carl's Jr. gross. And I was like, and it's taking me years to get away from that. Almost every YouTube video still to this day, on a lot of my Instagram posts, someone will say, hey Marisha, will you wash my car for me? To this day. That was 8 years ago. So it took me forever to get away from it, and it was such a hard lesson to learn. I started having to, you have to pull yourself away from those people. You just have to start kind of seeing those trends and seeing the people who will just straight up use you. And that's why some actors will talk about this feeling of feeling like a prostitute after a while. And it's hard when you step away and not be like, oh, that was gross. Like, there are definitely times where it'll make you feel gross. I started pulling away from those type of people and just started surrounding. You really have to find your crowd, and I know that's true everywhere. But once you find that support structure, sorry, still getting over a head cold. Finding those like-minded people, and you know, like a lot of industries. The entertainment industry, especially in the creative and especially in the, you know, in the geeky video games and comedy side, are mainly male dominated. I often find myself being the only female in the writer's room. I often find myself being the only female in the conference room when we're taking a meeting. That happens a lot. And you have to start realizing, one of my best friends, Eric Campbell, who's also my writer on, he was my writer on Signal Boost for a while. And now he's moved on to general production over at Geek and Sundry. He's like one of the first people he gets like white male guilt for real. He's like, oh my god, we have to get more ladies in here. Marisha, we have to get more females in here. And I'm like, you're right, we do. And he's like, I'm so sorry.
You must know something.
You have to start realizing, you know, there are people like Eric, and there's a ton of, you know, people, well, most of the guys that I work with are aware of the problem, and they're feminists themselves. And I was creeping. I see you creeping. But yeah, most people are honestly aware and want to help and support you, and they're on your side. I've learned it also took some time of just educating some guys. Like, sometimes you have to tell them, you have to stop and say, like, look around the room right now. Do you notice anything? And sometimes you know, it's not your guys' fault. Yeah, they're just like we've had our experiences their whole life, so have them, so have the guys. And it's just about communicating and sharing those experiences, because most people are all down for the cause. We're all on the same team. And then you start to realize that a lot of it just is a systemic problem. Eric got the job because he was the best candidate for the job, not because he was a white male. It just happens to be easier for white men to progress further in most industries. Sorry guys, you have to accept that. And once you start realizing that, that's when everyone can start helping other people. Because we want women in the room. Eric wants female writers in the room. You want to have a kind of equal female to male ratio, because that breeds perspective. Half of the consumers are going to be female. Why shouldn't half of the creators be female? And that's how you really get that more worldly, more open view that's going to be more progressive for everyone in the future. We want our women to do well. They're half of our population. We want them to all succeed, because then rising tide raises all ships. It's not a competition. So yeah, I think once you find those people who understand and you find that support structure, I mean, if I didn't have Matt has held me up in like the worst of times, and he knows how he's seen a lot of how I'll get treated by somebody compared to how they treat him, and then once you kind of start lifting that veil and just being aware that it's no one's fault, it's just an inherently fucked up systemic issue, but it's something that we all need to talk about, because it only gets better if we talk about it. And so many people, I think, get afraid of like the feminist word, the F word. It means I don't know what's with this like prevailing notion that if you're for something, it means you have to be against something else, because that's not what feminism is about. It's not about if I'm a feminist and fuck men. No, not at all. Literally, all of my best friends are men. I'm marrying one. They're great. They're great. Love my guys. But you do have to find those people who can take a step back, look at the situation, and just want it to be better and healthier for everybody. And I found a really good support structure with a lot of my writing partners, a lot of my producers, Matt, a lot of my friends. And most of them are male, but they don't treat me any differently. That's the thing. It's like I don't want to be treated special because I'm a female, because I'm not. I just want to work with everybody else. So yeah, I'd say that finding like-minded individuals, that support structure. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but a complicated and deep one. But yeah, I kind of started pulling away, from Super Power Beatdown after that, and started only kind of doing the hosting stuff. I can do an opener and a closer for you. I don't need to do anything else. That's fine. And you just start learning and realizing your boundaries and the people who you're going to want to work with and keep around. That makes sense. Did that sort of answer your question? Okay, good. But it gets tough. And there have been times where you will have times where you get angry because you realize that things, right now in a lot of our situations that I'm in, I know I'm getting paid less than a lot of my male counterparts, and they know it too, and it doesn't make them feel better either. That's what I think everyone needs to understand, is it's only going to help all of us if we all reach a more balanced and equal position in a lot of these industries. So, yeah. Sorry for that long-winded answer. Yes.
Related question: how do you combat the pressure to look or act a certain way, or to be geeky or nerdy enough? I know this community, while being inclusive, has a nasty tendency to disinclude
Yes.
Words.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I got what you're laying down. Yeah.
To exclude people who don't quite fit their own definition
Of nerdy.
How do you combat that?
It's tough, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that I don't feel like I do have a certain responsibility being a personality in that industry to stay relevant and to stay on the kind of new geeky topics. That's also kind of partially become my job now, in a weird way. With time and with age, it keeps shifting. As time goes on, I've given less and less fucks. Hence my flag fucks sweater. I don't have any because they're all on my sweater. Yeah. I started learning, I tend to not wear a whole lot of makeup when I'm not on camera. Because, I don't know, in a weird way, I'm like, all my friends who've seen me made up have also probably seen me, like, no makeup, cry, sick, exhausted. So I'm like, they know how I look on the spectrum. I don't need to prove to them every day that I'm gonna, I also am someone who still likes to take a little bit of pride in their appearance, and everyone look, you feel better when you look good, right? That's just psychology. Everyone likes getting dressed up every now and then, but it doesn't mean that I try and define myself by that or wrap myself around that. But I mean, it takes time to, like, my early years in Los Angeles. You definitely want to keep up those appearances and push, especially in my earlier years in the geek and video game industry, when people were challenging me all the time that I was wrong, that I'm a fake, that I'm a fraud. In which case, I remember doing things like, well, let me jump on Think Geek and buy some geeky t-shirts just to help push that over the edge, I guess. Like, there were definitely some times, that I had to, I did feel like you have to kind of put on that face. But you get tired. You get tired of doing that. And there's still me on. Like, I'm talking to you guys now and trying to be more presentational and make sure you can understand my words, but it doesn't mean that, I'm not going to get in the hotel room later and be like, Matt, just come over here. Yeah, give me that glass of wine. And then, like, I become, like, Mark Ruffalo, like an unintelligible piece of shit. But it's just everybody. I don't think, I'd say earlier on, I was probably felt like I needed to do that more. As time goes on, I don't know if I do it any more or any less than the rest of us. I mean, look, we're on an anime con. What do you do when you go to an anime con? You bust out all your geeky t-shirts in your cosplay. Like, that's fun. And that's part of being a different person every now and then and switching it up. And I mean, with Critical Role, a lot of times people will come up to us and be like, you guys intimidate me because I'm just not an actor. That's not true. Everyone acts a little bit every day. Don't lie to yourself. You do. Because when you're in front of people, and depending on who you're talking to and who you're with, you're gonna wanna you mirror that situation. But I try to be real. But yeah, right now this is pretty much me. I get tired of putting up a veil sometimes. Yeah. Once again, did that answer your question? Sure. I'll accept sure. Yes.
What was your inspiration for Signal Boost, and how do you choose the host party time?
Good question. She said, what was my inspiration for Signal Boost? And Signal Boost, for those of you who don't know, is a show that I produce for Geek and Sundry, where it's basically like show and tell. We get all of our interesting nerdy friends, and they come on and they tell us 3 things that they love that they think that you should know about. Signal Boost is a funny story. none of us wanted to do Signal Boost. None of us. That was an idea that came from the old Geek and Sundry administration, and they wanted us to make a weekly show. So they came to me, Sean Becker, and Eric Campbell, and this was pretty much the first time we'd worked together. The three of us had worked together in this capacity before. We always joke that it was the arranged marriage that worked. So Geek and Sundry came to us and they said, we basically want the vlog, but without the cool, interesting part where Felicia goes and does stuff. And I go, so wait, the like, kind of the boring part of the episode where she's just sitting at the desk telling things and she's like, yeah, we want that. But just different, not that. This is what you have to do. Once again, by the way, if you have producers or EPs above you that are trying, or like basically studio notes. We were getting these studio notes from Geek and Sundry, who was our client, and they didn't know what they wanted. They didn't know what they wanted. So they were giving us notes, none of them made sense. Yeah. So I said, well, I'm not going to do that. You guys can't make me the host of that show because the internet will revolt. They will burn me alive if they think that here's this other redhead who's not Felicia Day doing the vlog. And I'm like, no. And they couldn't get it. They were like, what? Why? I'm like, do you? All right. And so I was like, well, what are the parameters? And they're like, you just need to tell us about 3 things each episode. And I was like, that's it? And they were like, yes. And I go, anything else? And they're like, oh, and it has to be in this weird talking head with this Tosh.0 window next to you format. And we went, all right. And we're like, any other parameters? And they said, no. And so we said, okay. Because they originally wanted it more like the vlog, which was things that had come out this week. Because they wanted Ian Sinclair. I like your shirt. It's my head. A dirty boss to tell you. This is my panel, How to Kick Ass and Take Names.
She's an authority. That's awesome.
Yeah, what are you up to?
I got a panel here a little bit.
Oh, are you on the Final Fantasy panel after this? No.
No, this one's just a Q&A thing.
Oh, just cute. Oh, kind of like this one was with you?
Yeah.
Look, you guys should go to Ian's panel. It's kind of like this, but with him later.
Me rambling for like an hour.
Yeah. That's what I've been doing. Just sort of rambling for it. It's hard to just talk about yourself.
It is, and it gets kind of weird, but just like you have to be weirdly openly honest and just kind of like hold back the stuff that would be deeply embarrassed.
Yeah. That's kind of what's going on right now.
Have you ever done a lightning round with you?
No.
What are my favorite things to do with you in the moment? And it's like the last 5-10 minutes. They ask you many random, like, the question I was like throwing is if you had a unicorn, what flavor ice cream would you like to drink? Weirdest stream of consciousness that you just feel.
That's pretty awesome. We might have to do that. We can do a lightning round. Yeah. Mainly because I've been talking about like heavy stuff, like being a woman and shit.
The crap she has to deal with? You don't even know. No, for real, I know. I've heard of him.
See, so Ian, great support guy. Who knows? They were asking about being a female creator and the challenges and what do you do, and I said you have to have like good support group and good guys who can like recognize that this shit sucks.
Oh yeah, no, some horrible stuff. And as a guy, yeah, that is validating. To be like, no, that's effed up. It isn't a guy thing. It isn't just.
It's just effed up. Yeah, it's just which is true. It's not a guy thing. It's not a girl thing. It's just effed up. It's just that guy.
Girl, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Means whatever.
Cool. They're dark chocolate-coated heart marshmallows.
That's awesome.
Do you want one?
I'm about to pound a Red Bull for my panel, so I can't have more sugar.
Okay. I'm going to finish this question on Signal Boost. Are you leaving now?
My bag is out there. I might come in.
Yeah, come back in. I love that you just like busted in like the Kool-Aid man, and now you're leaving. Oh yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah. In Sinclair, everybody. He's awesome. He crashes on our couch whenever he flies to LA for voiceover work, so he's a good friend of ours. Anyway, Stone Boost. Yeah, so they gave us, they wanted it to be originally more relevant, and I said, when this show is still going on in 9 months, I don't want to be a salesman. I didn't want the show to put us ever in a situation where we felt like we had to pitch or sell things that we didn't even know about until we researched it for the show. You know, that we hadn't tangibly touched. And they originally wanted me to be the only host. Like, I was just going to host the show. And I was like, no, I will get tired. I can't come up with, like, it's hard coming up with 3 things a week alone. I didn't think I could do it in 9 months and it still be genuine and not just turn into a device for me to try and sell stuff for Legendary Digital. I did not want that to happen. So we switched the format to rotate out hosts, kind of make them these personality pieces. And since we had to do 3 things, I was like, all right, we'll make them do their 3 favorite things that could be 20, 30 years old. It's basically show and tell, because that keeps us from being just salesmen. And that was kind of how, and then we had so many issues. That show went through pre-production and these pilots and these reshoots, and it took about 6 months, and it should not have taken that long. And it was because the studio didn't know what they wanted. And so they would come back and they were giving us these like dumb notes that made no sense. Like, I remember one of the notes was legit, okay, you know, I feel like Marisha's just really not describing, you're not really grasping why Marisha loves this thing. Even though the paragraph started with, I really love this thing because, and I wrote it. And they're like, or that's what it was. The studio didn't realize that I had wrote the most recent version of the script. And they were like, doesn't sound like Marisha's voice. And I'm like, I've got 10 minutes. So yeah, we ended up coming with that idea, and because there were so many trials and tribulations around it, the kind of joke of the show became that the show was slowly trying to kill us. And it kind of became this weird commentary piece on how me and Sean and Eric felt about making an internet web show for Geek and Sundry. So it's got like a lot of kind of these deep nods and winks that mainly only we know what they're there for, but if you look deeply, you can see us being pretty sarcastic and pretty snarky. The show kind of, it turned out to be kind of snarky in tone because we were done. We were done. We also thought it was going to be canceled in 4 weeks. We thought, like, they came out with a whole bunch of shows at the same time, and that being one of them, and we were like, we're going to get canceled first. And now we're the last one standing. We're the only one left. All the shows came out yeah, so that was good fun. But yeah, you guys should check it out. It's good fun. Okay, next question. Try and throw some. Yeah, right there. You did polka dots.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand for her.
Oh, gotcha. She's your hand raiser.
When, how, where, and why did you just suddenly decide to go to Los Angeles? Did you just like pop up your head off the pillow in the morning and go, Los Angeles? Or like, did you plan it?
You
or did you just wake up in Kentucky and go,
it's kind of close to that. Not too far off.
It sounds a little scary just to suddenly go to,
yes.
just suddenly pop up and go to Los Angeles.
I was insane, and I don't recommend, I can't believe my parents allowed me to do it, to be totally honest. I was going to college in Pittsburgh and was scouted by a commercial agent out in Los Angeles. And he said, I was like, look man, I'm in school. And he goes, well, if you ever want to leave, come out to Los Angeles, I'll sign you on the spot. And I said, really? Stars in my eyes? And I was like, okay. So I finished out that semester, that year, dropped out, and wouldn't recommend it, by the way, but I would totally recommend it. Dropped out, had a boyfriend at the time that was down to just kind of go with me, And I set the date, June 1st of 2008. I was like, I am going to leave Kentucky, because I was going to school in Pittsburgh, went back to Kentucky, gathered shit, then was gonna go from Los Angeles. Had never been to Los Angeles before, ever. Was like, I'm gonna leave June 1st. It has to be June 1st. And that was the date that was set for like months, like 6 months. We got my boyfriend's car roadworthy, California ready, the whole kit and caboodle. He was working the late shift at UPS, loading planes, like at LAX, or no, sorry, the Louisville airport.
CVG?
Huh?
CVG? Or, in
Louisville.
In Louisville, my bad.
Yeah. So yeah, he was loading planes for UPS. Last night on the job, fell asleep at the wheel, totaled the car. We were supposed to leave the next morning. He walked from it. He walked because, pretty sure, because he was asleep, because he wrapped that car, or he got wrapped around a pole. And I was like, no, we have to leave tomorrow. And my parents and his parents were like, why? And I was like, I just know. They were like, push it 2 weeks, regather. And I was like, I can't. If I push it once, that gives me permission to push it again. And if I don't leave now, I was afraid I would never go. I would never make it. And to this day, I still feel like that was true, had I not done it. So my parents said, fine. We'll just drop you off. And once again, kudos to my parents for being insane and hyper supportive. So they took a week off work. We loaded up in my parents' minivan and drove across the country. I had about $3,000 in my bank account, probably a little under. That whole $3,000 went to the first month's, last month's, and security deposit on a studio apartment roach motel that barely had working plumbing in Panorama City, far north in the valley in Los Angeles. And that was my first apartment. And then my first job, I didn't know, we didn't have internet, we didn't have anything. So I went across the street, got a paper, just a newspaper, little local classifieds, and there was a ad for grassroots campaign, because right at this point it was 2008. So the Democratic National Committee was looking for people to canvass for them on the street. So I was canvassing for Obama and Hillary at the time, trying to raise money. And that was interesting. We would meet at a place in Westwood. They would put us in teams, and then they would, I'm about to tell you guys something crazy that I don't tell many people ever. Put us in teams, ship us to a different part of the city, generally in front of a Whole Foods, because liberals, and try and get money for them. So I ended up getting very acquainted with the city very quickly because they were shipping us to a different end of town every day. Was also trying to do auditions at the time, and we didn't have a car, so I was taking the bus. And in Los Angeles, public transportation does not have a good reputation. So it would be about a 2.5-hour commute there and a 2-hour commute back every day on the bus. My boyfriend at the time transferred his job at American Eagle Apparel. I'm trying to get through this very fast, but it's gonna pay off. American Eagle Apparel at the time transferred and was working at the American Apparel on Hollywood Boulevard, right next to the Kodak Theater in the Hollywood and Highland Mall. So sometimes I would get off work and would go meet him. I started doing that, and then I started noticing the street performers and the buskers and the street characters on the street. And I was like, I wonder how much money these people make. And the job started giving me a hard time with taking time off for auditions. And I was like, I didn't come here to canvass for politics. I came here for auditions. So I quit, had my mom mail me my tap shoes, took my trash can from my bathroom, the little bathroom trash can, wrote tips on line paper, stuck it to it, and then went out on Hollywood Boulevard and tap danced for tips, and made $86 in like quarters and ones the first $2 or the first 2 hours, and went oh yeah, well, I'll just do this then. Because that was about as much as I was making. I was making about $75 a day canvassing for the Democrats. So I was like, okay, I can do that tap dancing for about 2 hours. So I started doing that. The problem was doing that for 2 weeks. I started realizing, oh, my body can't keep this up every day, all day. I had, I'll never forget tap dancing, and I was like, and there's the tourist, and she was watching me, and she goes, oh, your shoe is leaking blood. And I looked down and I had a blister from where I'd been tap dancing, and the blister just like ruptured, and my tap shoe was filling with blood. And then like blood was going everywhere on the blood. It was like a Tarantino tap dance session. Tap dance, please bleed. So I was like, oh, okay. And at the time, a Canadian comedian who was just there on like a visa. There was a lot of foreigners who would go out there because visas, they were just there on like their green cards, couldn't work. He was dressing up as Batman. He called himself Canadian Batman. And he would just walk by and he'd go, you're working too hard. And he'd keep walking. And I'd be like, fuck you, this is art. And he'd be like, the next day he'd walk by again, he'd be like, you're working too hard. And I was like, what? This is a craft. And then finally he was like, no, really. He was like, why don't you just get a costume, you'll make double the money, triple the money, and you'll have to work a fraction as hard. So I was like, well, you're Batman, and I'm a massive nerd, and I love poison ivy, so I'll make a poison ivy costume. Problem was, turns out most of the general public has no clue who Poison Ivy is. No one, no. So I got Wife of the Jolly Green Giant, I got Eve as in Adam and Eve. They got creative with who they thought I was. Then one day, a little girl ran up and goes, Tinkerbell, Tinkerbell. And I was like, yes, little girl, I am Tinkerbell. And then went and bought a pair of wings, and then I became Tinkerbell on Hollywood Boulevard for 2 years. I've seen some shit. I've seen some shit, guys. I stood on the corner of Hollywood and Highland for 2 years. It's like standing on the corner of the world. I got propositioned for prostitution on the weekly. I witnessed a turf war between dudes who thought that they were gangster rappers but were just like bad MC artists. I saw a guy jump off of the roof of the mall and kill himself. I saw a homeless guy take a shit in the grate, like right in front of me. I could write a book based on my time of working as a busker on Hollywood Boulevard, and that is a massive part of why I'm here today. So yeah, that's how I auditioned, and I could make my own hours, and was doing improv classes, and that was pretty much the only job that I could find that I could make a decent living off of, and still be flexible enough to where I can still shoot web series, do classes, audition. Why do you think so many damn actors are bartenders? Because you can work during the day and make a bank load at night. It's hard to find part-time jobs that you can still make a living off of in Los Angeles, and this was one of them. But yeah, I did that for about two and a half years. I was a street performer, you guys. That's my deep secret. I don't tell a lot of people that. That's how I got to Los Angeles. Okay, I think that's probably it, right? Sorry, we didn't get to do Ian's lightning round because I told a crazy story about me working on the street. Don't take that out of context, people who are filming. And all right, guys, the final panels next.
Well, Ian's panel's in here.
Oh, Ian's panel is in here.
Yes, that's why he's here.
Oh, don't say that in front of Ian. He can hear you.
You guys for an hour, I don't give two craps.